You're probably wondering why I'm videotaping in the bathroom. I'm doing this video because I'm frustrated, frazzled, irritated. Anyway. Okay. I'm doing this video in my bathroom because the lighting is horrible everywhere else, and every time I upload a video I'm like, shadows are all involved and it just looks bad. It seems there's no lighting anywhere that even is slightly conducive to my cheap camcorder. So here I am filming in my bathroom. But you know, like they say, the bathroom is a place where many epiphanies are born. But no one said that, but you know, I've had a few. Nothing like bathroom time to open up the mind, inspire new ideas, new thoughts. And this is something I think people have pondered for a hot second. We haven't really delved into it like we should. I just created a word. Yeah, dove into it. Paul, he has a blog on AOL. I love the guy. I think he's very interesting. I respect him. We disagree on a lot, but I love to read his blog. He's an atheist, and I'm a Christian. And I know I drive him nuts sometimes. I probably drive him nuts all the time. But, you know, I'm in one of those weird moods today. So what I want to talk to you about, something I think people who do not believe in a God should consider. And I say that humbly, I say that humbly because as a Christian, I have always had a lot of diversity in my life. And I'm probably one of the few people I know that have. I mean, a lot of people say they do, but really when you look at their circles, everybody's an imitator of themselves. So, the people they have in their lives. I think people are interesting. You don't have to agree with me, you just have to be a decent human being. On that note, the no God philosophy that really has some of the same parallels of irrational thought as they say those who believe in God have. And these parallels are important to explore because what you define as rational or irrational consists in these things. It's more along the lines of logic and reasoning than it is a society, cultural stronghold or experience or something in your childhood. It's just a real basic premise. I want to talk about that because I think you might realize some similarities, and by recognizing that, you either question your belief system or you'll have more respect for someone who disagrees. So that's the point. So it's kind of boring to some of you guys. I want to talk about this. The God box and the no God box. The other ends of the spectrum, people who totally disagree, and yet there's some similarities. And the similarities are interesting because they defy logic for man. If you don't believe in a God, then you accept some scientific theory on the starting of all life. It could be the Big Bang, but obviously something had to exist before the Big Bang, because when the Big Bang went poof and had that big explosion, there were elements that were obviously prior existing in the universe prior to that. And prior to those elements, other things had to exist in the universe to make that happen. And you keep going back and back, and you end up at this little spot. And the spot is kind of like a Harry Potter awe moment. It's one of these like, you end up standing at the starting point of life that either says energy always existed, or whatever your theory on the beginning of life is, or something was created or born, started, had its first moment of life. Now space is a creation in my opinion, but if you don't have a God box, space is something. It's not a nothing. It consists of area. It holds everything. It's not a nothing. It has a purpose. What's interesting about space is an awe moment. If you've ever laid down in the ground and stared at the universe, do you ever really capture in your heart forever and ever and ever and ever and ever? Because when you look at space, it goes on forever. If you've ever stared at it, it just goes on and on and on and on and on, and it never ends. That's an awe moment. That's to marvel at. Yet science agrees. This marveling, huge concept somehow had a starting point. And that starting point, either it created itself from nothing, because nothing had to exist at some point in time, or you're a scientist that says that's not true. The universe can just exist. That's a parallel for you. The universe can just exist, and God can just exist. Those are things to marvel at. This is rational to some, and it's irrational to think this way. Really, there's a connection. Something just existing. You see, I think for something to exist, that's supernatural. That's almost powerful, because that something can escape being born. It can escape having a starting point. It's pretty powerful. And yet, this box says a God can exist, but it never dies. God doesn't die. But this one starts off with a starting point with, many different theories, but you can put any word into it. Matter, molecules, energy, curvature, space, anything. And yet, all those die. Stars die. Suns die. Energy dies. Everything eventually dies. And yet it had the ability, power, to create itself or just exist. That's science's birth. Now, some people have criticized me in the use of the word science. I'm not here to have anal retentive word games. Like I said to somebody else, you can walk into a library and you go to the science hallway and you're going to find the books on evolution or the Big Bang or whatever. But that's the birth of science, in terms of the birth of all life. Started from something that just existed, or it created itself. And yet it can create itself and evolve from matter, molecules, until it becomes an entire system, orbits and planets and stars that go on forever and ever and ever. And human species came from that, and bacteria and animals and every living thing, plants, all came from that starting point, where whatever consisted of that starting point by science terms will eventually die. Energy will eventually die. And yet, that's rational. And someone over here that says, you know what? I'm not buying that. Because it's too lucky. It's too lucky. It's too powerful. It's so powerful that it can't keep itself from dying, but yet it can birth itself. And yet, someone else might say, you know what? There's a higher power involved. It has to be a higher power. That's more rational. I can't understand it. I can't conceive a God who is existing, or a God that has power, but he doesn't die. And he can just exist. And somehow I think that if you look at those two starting points, the odd factors are great on both sides. And yet the atheist will say the believer, the person that believes in a God, is irrational. So I would say that until atheists and scientists who don't accept a God, start being reasonable or honest about the roots of their whole belief system, I call it faith. It's faith because man will never ever understand the mysteries of the universe, ever. Science will redefine another thought. They'll say, well, energy came here. Oh, I can make energy always exist in this platform, in this science project, but he will find out later on that there's something he didn't see. You see, science cannot understand something always existing. And so it always has to make a new definition for another reason why this happened or this happened. But the start and birth, the cause and effect, everything has a starting point. And if something can just exist in a science mind or an atheist mind, certainly they can have no problem with somebody who can believe that God can just exist, especially one that doesn't die. If you can see the marvels of your starting point, you will be in awe, and you might even begin to question. Rational.